In this part of our photography review show, we're going to be looking at animal and portrait photographers. Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Bors. I'm a professional photographer from the south of England, here in West Sussex. I've been photographer for over 15 years, and for many years now I've been reviewing photos for my fellow photographers, and we decided that we're gonna do the same here at our brand Clever Photographer. So we're super excited because after last week's we got many entries, and this is the reason why we had to divide the show between the different aspects just to make it easier to navigate through them. Also, because from some of the photographers we received many pictures. Unfortunately, we are not able to process them. We actually had to pick the 2 best from all the photographers and just review them. That's if you have shared more than 2 pictures. If you have shared 1 or 2, we're gonna review them, no problem. So thank you very much for joining us. If in future you want to join us again, make sure that you follow our page Clever Photographer, our Instagram Clever Photographer, and also you can visit our website at cleverphotographer.com, where you can sign up to our newsletter and you get so much more information about this really cool feature we just started to offer. So let's not wait any further, let's jump straight into it. Now we're going to be looking at animal and portrait photographers. So we start right away. So here we are in Lightroom. I have 3 animal photographers, and before we do that, I thought I have some kind of interesting resources to share with you this week. First of all, when it comes to pet photography, like here from Sabine or Vanessa, if you're looking for some extra inspiration, tools, hints, and maybe help, and you want to kind of push and improve your skills, then there is a website I really like and I follow the girls for quite some time, and it's called, let me show you, Hair of the Dog. They have a full academy on how to photograph pets and dogs and many different things, and it's brilliant. They do a great job. You can simply go and join their Facebook group where you can improve your skills, or you can buy one of their masterclasses and really work on your skills when it comes to pet photography. So this is a great and cool resource, and if you have a time, make sure you check them out. It's really worth it. You get the paid stuff as well as the free, and it's a great community which is built around actually a pet and dog photography, which is really helpful, especially when you're looking for a new inspiration on how to shoot the animals. So you see they kind of use different kind of compositions and stuff, so it's really cool. For those animal photographers who capture more of wildlife, there is one more thing I ran into last week and I was really surprised by it. It's a documentary from BBC, so well recognized, full series, which is called Wildlife Photography Masterclass. And actually when you go on Discover Wildlife, it's there available for free. It has a 10th episode and it goes through pretty much everything when it comes to wildlife photography. Different episodes cover different things. Obviously there is a for example, episode of how to photograph foxes, and there is the kind of basics when it comes to wildlife photography. And I think it's definitely worth the effort. When it comes to producers like BBC, it's a quality stuff and it's for free, so make sure you check it out. Now let's go back to our Lightroom and let's jump straight to our photographers. So starting with Sabine here, and in fact this is the picture she sent us this week. There is a reason why I added the other picture, because I wanted to kind of see both of them and start to look at the kind of style of the photographer. So Sabine, thank you again for joining us. And once again, we're going to be looking at technical part of the picture, how you capture it and how you use your camera. We're going to be looking at the artistic part of the photo, where we're going to be looking at the composition and the subject and the message and the idea behind. And then we're going to touch up on the post-processing. So let's jump straight into it. So obviously we have a doggy here again, and I kept wondering if it's the same dog, if it's a different dog, but I guess it's a different dog. And starting from the technical part, so we have the dog fully in focus, and I'm looking at the picture and different things go through my mind. Now when I was looking at your picture last week, the dog itself kind of represented what dogs should be. He almost seems to be kind of interested and he's looking in the same way. Here the dog looks more kind of sad, and because I was studying the dog more, I'm starting to wonder if maybe the background isn't added there in post-processing. It's just a question if it is or if it isn't. Either way, obviously when it comes to your focus and details, the dog is in full detail. Everything is nice and sharp, and then you done really well the separation between the background and the main subject being the dog. So saying there's no details about how you capture it, but I'm assuming the focal length was right, and that's fine. Exposure is great. The lighting is quite fine. Again, I would be interested if it's a natural light or if it's a studio shot and you added the background afterwards, but still, technically, it's well done. Let's just have a look at some of the details in the dog. I think the light, everything looks cool. Then moving on the artistic part, because I think after the last week, I told you already your technique when it comes to camera is well done. There's nothing problem. So maybe then something to build up on. So looking at the dog and talking about the artistic feel, the message of it, as I said already, the dog look kind of sad or maybe threatened, or this is like when I look at the dog, I'm thinking about owner walking away from him. So that's kind of message which doesn't then correspond with the rest, but maybe this is a street dog or whatever. This is why I kind of shared the resources on the beginning to look at the hair of the dog, because these guys are really good at looking at the compositions and just give you an idea of how to kind of push yourself to maybe just a bit more interesting thing than just the dog lying. So from composition wise, I think the square works here very well. Obviously the dog is in the center, he's our star of the story. I think when you're using square crop, I think it works the best when the composition is balanced, and again, because the dog is kind of looking away towards here, it's just breaking it a little bit, but it's fine. Obviously I would be quite interested to see the raw file to see how much we could get out of it still. Maybe I would work a little bit more with the kind of vignetting or some kind of gradient, just to kind of remove a little bit of the colors. But artistic part, perfectly fine. I would just a little bit work on new ideas, not just a dog lying, but maybe just a different things. Check out the resources I mentioned on the beginning. Moving on the post-processing, this is where just kind of quickly we were touching on things like little vignette here and here would add a little bit more separation. I think the next thing which is lacking compared to last week is the contrast between the dog and the background. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, saying that the dog has a pretty much similar tones of the colors used in the background, so that kind of removes the contrast, where last week obviously the dog being brown and everything on the light blue, it created a really nice contrast and easy separation. And again, I think little gradient here and here would help just to do the difference. But other than that, the colors are natural, and everything seems to be alright. The contrast, the light, the highlights, everything is cool. So thank you very much for again sending us another picture. If you have more, make sure you join us. We're always super happy to see your pictures. Moving next to Tom Lance, and Tom sent us this picture of, I would assume is a bear, as a grizzly bear, but it's a bear anyway. And obviously this is going to the wildlife photography and the resources I was mentioning on the beginning of this video. It's a lovely capture. I mean, anybody who gets this close or has a camera who can focus and then get this animal in such a sharp state and everything is amazing. So from technical part, yeah, I mean, pinpoint sharp, perfect. You can see the water dripping. Obviously the animal is interacting with something. When it comes to light, obviously there was some kind of light source coming from the side. The exposure is fine. You were using natural light. The focal length is perfect. We are focusing on the actual main subject, which is clearly the bear, and we leaving the behind in a nice blur. So technically very well managed. Then moving on the artistic part, there is just a slight lack of a story. Why? Because the bear is either looking at something or digging into something or playing with something, and it's really difficult for the viewer to imagine what it is. What I mean in that is that you need to tell the story a little bit further, I think. The crop doesn't help. I think this picture would be great as a part of a series of, let's say, 4 or 5 pictures where you have the bear from far and then a little bit closer, and then you get to this. And then when person looking at it, he gets it. It's a story. You're telling a story. But like this, you don't see the bear's face. You don't see what is he playing with. So I think as an artistic feel, it's a little bit of a shame that there isn't just a bit more telling. But obviously everybody knows it's a bear. But Then moving on the crop, I think there is lots of space left here, so it would be really interesting to actually see the raw file and see how we could work with that. If you have more or if you have other pictures, definitely make sure you share them with us next week or another week, so we can kind of look into it more deep. I would also be quite interesting to know a bit more about how you actually capture the photos, what your camera setting. Unfortunately, when you share pictures through Facebook, they don't always get through, so this is the reason why I can't really tell you more. But as a part of the story, I think the photo work. As a part of a single image like this, it's a little bit confusing for a viewer. I hope you know what I mean and I know what I'm talking about. Although technically, to be there, being able to capture the bear in such a shape with so much sharpness, it's a great job. Now moving on the post-processing, obviously there is a heavy vignette going on, which I personally really like. Looking at it, it reminds me a picture from a past where I used to photograph wild animals in a zoo, and then I was doing kind of black and white fine art, almost edits, where you do a really strong vignette, turn it black and white, and you replay with lots of contrast on the animals. It's almost something you could do on this. Again, if we could see the raw file and see how much space was there, if any, I would definitely center the animal more in the center, because as you imagine, the animal's actually facing the edge of the photo and then leaving a space behind. So as a storytelling and a cropping, that isn't perfect. You would prefer this space to be in front of him. Similarly, as you would have a horse running, you would want this part being free rather than behind the horse, unless it would be really specifically connected with the story. Either way, looking at the white balance, I think it's perfectly fine. Wondering about these parts, if you are doing some dodge and burn, looking at it on a computer after I download it from Facebook, it looks a little bit pushed and harsh on the highlight, but it's nothing extreme. In general, as I say, brilliant capture, well done technically, storytelling. Try to send us more picture and we'll see what we can do. Thank you very much. Anyway, it's a lovely photo to share and to get the feedback on. Moving on, next one, we have a Vanessa who sent us another dog photo. Coming back to the guys I was talking earlier about from the hair of the dog, really something I would check out, because when it comes to the picture like this, obviously absolutely nothing wrong with them. What I think you need to work on is a composition. So let's have a look at it. The technical part, we have our main subjects clearly being the dog, lovely dog standing on the road. Let's have a look closer to the dog. Everything looks nice and sharp. So that's all good there. I think one thing you could have done is work on a little bit stronger depth of field, having maybe the dog more in a focus and blur the background even more, but still lovely. Exposure is perfectly well done. I'm not 100% sure about the time of the day, although obviously you have a blue sky and everything is kind of well lit. I think maybe a little bit later or a little bit earlier would work just tiny bit more, and you obviously using natural light, so well done on that. Moving on, artistic part. This is where I was telling you to go and see the resources I was mentioning earlier, because I think that would push your imagination. Once we as a photographers almost master or be comfortable with our setup on the camera, this is where we really need to start to study other photographers' work and see how they compose the animals or how we compose the pictures, and start to get comfortable with it. Why I'm saying it? Well, for example, this row, there is this black mark, which after I look at the dog, that's immediately the next thing I'm looking at, and it's kind of just disturbing me from the whole feel. I think the scene, you have a like really lovely leading line here, and I think there is another one, so if there would be two leading lines going towards the dog would be much stronger. I think there is a huge amount of space here which really doesn't probably need to be there. I mean, you could go and crop much closer to the dog. You could probably even remove this in Photoshop and see if it would work. I think this would be quite easily done, and it could really kind of push the picture forward. I think what you've done here with the dog looking towards the empty space, I think that's great. I think well done on that, but I hope you know what I mean by saying that now it's time to start to look at the other people's pictures and spending time on finding the right places, going at the right time, and really just pushing yourself to find the better compositions. Post-processing, absolutely nothing wrong. I think you have replaced the sky here, which really works for this scene because this seems to be kind of midday-ish or daylight scene, so obviously blue sky great, except you have these kind of gray sides on the side, which you would remove by cropping anyway. Everything is nice in focus. You could have pushed again more of the separation. You could kind of unsharpen these part of the photos if you would want to. The white balance is fine, although I'm sensing slight touch towards the green. You can see it always on the actual hair here. When I'm looking at it here, and again, that could be just Facebook and the compression there, but the yellow going into the kind of hues of green, so I think just be careful about that. And then it also depends what color is the dog, but that's another thing. And yeah, play around with the crops and see if you could maybe try to do a little square around and see if that would work. I mean, let's see if we can maybe just kind of push it to something like this. And then obviously you need to play around with this part, or you could just kind of keep him in the you know, the rule of third. And then let's see if I could even maybe from here just to remove this part. It works in some way, but you would have to do more editing. But you get what I'm saying by saying that you could kind of play around with it and see what else you could kind of create. Obviously, I think saying that the scene isn't the most perfect, you could really work and see maybe like a panorama like this, which looks really cool, and just kind of really try to push the picture where it can go. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Definitely send us more pictures. We can't wait to see them, and have a great week. After the animal pictures, we're gonna move into the portrait photography, and we have another 4 portrait photographers. So let's jump right there. And it's time for one of the most popular photography style, the portrait photography. So we have 4 portrait photographers, starting with Auden here, and with probably one of my most favorite pictures from this week's show. These lovely wedding photos, and this is the kind of time where really I will not have much to say because they are absolutely excellent. Professional work, upbeat, very much in line with what's trendy now, and then moving on to technique. So technique wise, when we look at both of the pictures, excellent work with the light. Obviously everything what mean to be in focus is in focus. Lighting we already talked about, exposure is excellent, very natural, great technique. Moving on the artistic part, so I'm assuming this would be a part of much bigger series, so 2 pictures give us an idea obviously where your level as a photographer are, but more pictures will tell us kind of deeper story of what's happening there. What I like between the 2 of them is that this one is more on the kind of natural side. Obviously you can still see some texture on the hands and the clothes and so on, where this one is more from the kind of dreamy fairy tale parts and fairy tale styles. Both of them work super well. I think the composition is lovely. Obviously you're working with the model very well, different kind of hand gestures. It also helps that it's a very beautiful woman, so in overall it's a lovely capture. I also like the fact that you work really well with the kind of foreground, middle ground, background, that you kind of really bring the subject up and everything else is out of focus, but you still have everything in a focus, because quite often when we try to do that, as you know, maybe the hand is in a focus and the rest no, or the other way around, but this is done really nicely. So when it comes to artistic feel and artistic part, super well done, really nothing to add. And then moving on to post-processing, as I said, it's a kind of 2 different examples. This one more dreamy, more kind of soft, very interesting edit, where this one is more kind of your editorial lifestyle magazine with some details and natural parts of the body left the way it should be, and I really enjoyed it. I love them both. You done a great job. Thank you so much for sending them to us, and well done. I actually already had a look at your Instagram profile, and I love your photos. I think you amazing photographer, and good luck into your future. Moving on the next one, we have a Lars S. So Lars also sent us several pictures, and to be honest, I couldn't really choose just two, so I choose three, and that being that Lars, I think your photos with the black background are definitely top class. I think you done super well here. People think that it's really simple and easy, but it's not. There is a kind of quite long way from the idea to the execution and natural end result, but you're doing it really well. So let's jump to them. Obviously we have two pictures here. They are in a focus, the lighting is great, it's very natural in a way of studio shot, and the exposure is fine. I think, let's see if we have any details about the pictures. No, we don't. That's a shame, because if we would have some more information about how they were captured, it would have helped us to tell a little bit more of a story. But either way, well done on that. Composition wise, yeah, obviously we have the gentleman standing, which is, well, I think I would maybe just center it a little bit more if it would be me, but I think that's more a personal choice. Then this gentleman in a tuxedo is also well done, and it's well centered. Maybe a little bit more space on the top, but it really depends what the picture is used for and so on. You could also punch a little bit more on him if you would want to, so the picture obviously could be used on multiple different purposes and so on. Then moving on this one, I know there were one or two of the color pictures. This one was my favorite. Obviously from outside, technically well done. You have your main subject fully in focus, and then you have your background blurred, but not blurred too much, so you're not able to say what is there, but you can actually say it's like some kind of waterfalls and flowers, so that is lovely. Also excellent choice when it comes to using the kind of shirt in a similar color as the flowers. That works very well. And technically again, great light, obviously everything in light. You know, now when it comes to portrait photography, there are so many different styles. This one is a little bit more to kind of American photographic, American portrait style, where everything is pretty much lit, rather than using kind of shadows and working more with the shadows and more contrast. But personally, I don't prefer either or. I think once they done well, they just work just like this photo. Moving on the artistic part of this picture, it has a great idea. I think it tells the story. Could we see more of the woman's face just to kind of add the full thing? Yes, we could, but maybe again it's a part of a series of the pictures, which I assume is right, and it just works. So Larry, just well done. I think the whole thing works. I think what you do works. It's technically well done. The composition is great, and finally touching on the post-processing for all three pictures. They are just well done. You very much keeping it natural and the way it should be. Your white balance is spot on. You know, everything is nice and clean. There is not too much of anything, and it's just great. So Lars, thank you so much for sending us your pictures. Well done. Just keep shooting, and if you have any more, make sure you send them over. We can't wait to see them and get inspired by them. Next for portrait photographer is called Mohd, and really you send us two pictures, and I'm not even gonna judge this one because this is more like a mobile phone snapshot. This is something what you photograph when you go for lunch with the friends. It's not really a photography. Moving on this one, it has a little bit more of the photography feel. At least you feel like the gentleman is kind of posing for us, but still, yeah, it more seems like something you would capture with the mobile phone. Technically, obviously the person is in focus, but so is everything else, which doesn't really work because it's a lot of mess at the back. Second, exposure, I'm not sure about the time of the day you capture this. I think probably midday, because probably later on in the day, because the shadows are not too strong. Obviously using natural light, so that's fine as well, but I think everything is just kind of tilt, and I think more will show up in the artistic kind of opinion. I think obviously you have a kind of dirty car which is a bit damaged, and then you have this super uninterested background. I think you could do so much more. This person just standing, playing with the grass and the sky blue behind them would be so much better than adding these elements, which are a bit confusing. Also, obviously, looking at it, you know, there is a little bit of dirt, just more work on it. There is so many courses you could be looking at when it comes to portrait photography, so make sure you check them out because you could do so much more. Let's see if we have any information about the camera itself. Oh yeah, it's iPhone, and it's iPhone. Yeah, nothing wrong about iPhone photography. I mean, you can do miracles. My friend just finished recording entire movie with it, so it can be done, but you need to work more on the whole idea of the portrait photography. So Mohd, thank you very much for joining us anyway, and we move on the last photographer of this part of our photography reviews, and his name is Stefkovic A. And to be honest, moving on these pictures, he sent us several. I think definitely Stefkovic black and white photography is your absolute best. I mean, this one specifically is my absolute favorite, and it's probably one of the nicest pictures of the week. I also really like this one, although there could be something done with the cropping, but I think the message is great. This one is also okay, depend what the story was and so on, but in general, I think the black and white photography really works for you. So moving on the actual technique and technical part of the photography, I think here perfect, everything is nice and sharp, the exposure is great, the focal length is brilliant, obviously everything is in focus, and it looks great. Here maybe depending what you work with and what the situation was, maybe you could try to blur some of the background, but it still works. Moving on the artistic part, when it comes to composition, this is brilliant, absolutely loving it. This tells story with the woman going up, lovely, thoughtful composition, well done. Maybe you could crop actually some parts of the stairs simply because I think something like this would be more than enough, and we would actually get the lady in our kind of lower third, or not lower third, in our rule of third kind of point, so that would kind of help us, maybe something like this, you know, and then it still tells the same story, but you lose all the distraction from it. And the girls are perfectly fine as well. It would be interesting to know what the story is. I mean, the lady there just kind of distract me a little bit, so yeah, just kind of see what you could do with it and maybe shift it a little bit. So depends on what the story was, depends how the raw file looked and so on, but still brilliant captures. I really like them. Artistically, the messages are clear. I really like, especially with black and white photography, when there is clear message, clear idea, clear subject. Once you start to go too confusing and too complex, I think the black and white photography isn't as strong, and it's just losing the whole point. Finally, post-processing, this is brilliant. Obviously black and white, really lovely contrast. Here I would be interested what the lighting option was. I mean, obviously if the woman would have a white dress, that would really top the whole scene, but it works very well. And here as well, you know, I think the black and white is nicely done. It's as natural as it can be, and it's well done. So in overall, Janos, thank you very much for sending us your pictures. This one, again, one of my most favorite from this whole week of the reviews, so well done on that one. And I think looking at all your pictures, sticking with the black and white because it seems like you have an eye on it. So guys, this is the part where we were looking at portrait and animal photographers. Thank you for joining us. If you want to join us in the future, keep an eye on our Facebook page, Clever Photographer, or even better, head to our website cleverphotographer.com, sign up to our newsletter, and get a reminder every week and get more information about what we're doing. Thank you so much and take care. Bye bye.